Well, that's quite a summary of the task election monitors have ahead of them. Now, let's begin the conversation in earnest now. Let me start with you, Professor Odinkalu. Looking at the format of the ballot paper, as long as it is there, with 91 parties, that's quite a task that you're going to have if you're going to monitor, each of them. And I'm asking that because if you look at the new insertions that were supposed to be made to the Electoral Act, the commission was to invite political parties not later than 40 days to inspect, that ballot paper to ensure their logo is correct and all that. Of course, the Electoral Act wasn't passed. So what kind of task is that ahead of them?
Well, let me not pretend, and thank you for having me and for having this convening. I don't want to pretend that I've seen the ballot paper, so I don't know what it looks like. I suspect if I've seen it, the elections are rigged.
Well, you can just imagine.
So I'd imagine that it may look long. The thing, though, is that there's a challenge of voter education that is huge. And everybody who is interested in the elections should be interested in voter education, starting with the political parties. And I suspect you're beginning with civil society and election observers. I should make this distinction between observers and monitors in the language, and I hope Dr. Lekki will take us through this when he chimes in. In the language of INEC, there's a distinction between monitors and observers. Only INEC can monitor. Non-INEC people can only observe. That is I'm just summarizing it as INEC puts it. I suspect you're dealing with CSOs and observers now because the political parties have not particularly distinguished themselves at this particular time in terms of exciting the country. I mean, the campaign season has been drab. It's been totally unexciting. And I don't remember any other campaign season that has been this unexciting, so close to the elections.
What do you mean unexciting? What would excite you? What do you hope to see?
I think the parties have not shown up. It's as simple as that. You struggle to know who the parties are, where the activities are taking place. I suspect I've only heard of the president showing up in one location in Akwa Ibom to campaign. I don't know of any others. I may have missed them. The PDP campaigns are not particularly any more exciting than the APC campaigns. I don't know of any other parties that are showing up to do campaigns. Other people may have heard of them. I haven't, and I've tried to study up and clue up. There's an air of parties just being missing in action. And without political parties, you're not going to have elections because they're the people putting up parties. We're not the people putting up, candidates. We are not. They are.
But wouldn't you say then that if it's as unexciting or as drab as it is and not as many parties as the number that we're hoping were going to showed up, shouldn't that make it easier to observe? Professor Yeso, Dr. Yeso is...
In the observation, actually, it's not the number of parties that makes it easy or not, because when you're posted to a polling unit, you're there to observe. If there are 100, 100, 150, you just observe the processes. But I think I do agree with Professor Odinkalu that it's been very unexciting because we haven't seen issue-based campaigns. We haven't even heard of anything happening. I recall very vividly in 2015, by this time, a lot of activities were happening. We could hear of APC, PDP, you know what was happening across the country. But right now, it's as if elections is not even.
So do you think it's political party apathy? I should talk about voter apathy. What do you think is responsible for that?
My perception is that there is some confusion in the land, and the people are waiting to see what will happen. The political parties themselves, I think they haven't gotten it right. Everyone is confused, especially with INEC guidelines. We've seen the draft floating here and there, and we learned that the final guidelines will be out on Monday. There needs to be very strong clarity on what would happen on the election day and how the processes would look like.
Then in that case, Mr. Oshoba, that would bring one to the point now where you say, okay, fine. The number is no longer really the issue. Going by what the previous two guests have pointed out, there's not much happening, so there's not much to monitor. That's the inference. And if there's not much to monitor, does that speak to the quality of the process itself?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it would be unfair to comment on the quality because INEC, we've got to support them. It's a tall order, what they're trying to do. 120,000, right? Polling centers is a lot to man. The politics in government now by releasing funds and supporting, you know, is a challenge. So we have to understand that they're doing a very difficult job, you know, with a little bit of support. However, right, having 91 political parties is way too many. You know, you can't have 91 presidential candidates. I think we need to limit the number of candidates based on their outreach. If you can't cover 2/3 of the states in the federation, then you won't be on the ballot box, on the ballot paper. But for some reason, it seems they've just allowed everybody to be on it. So I think that's the challenge in itself. Okay,
Mr. Lecky, let me come to you, because I know you're in Abuja there. From what we've heard from the panel, they've talked about the process so far being unexciting, but more worrying. One of our guests here has talked about the process, the guidelines being a bit hazy. And I know there's been a bit of an issue concerning those guidelines. Could you clarify for us what, I mean, just briefly now, what those guidelines are and what we're expecting?
Thank you very much for having me on. Regarding the issues of the guidelines are being finalized. Starting from last week, Monday, we engaged political parties. They were giving copies of the guidelines. We went through them. They had been previously sent to them by email, soft copies, and hard copies were provided at the meeting we had political parties last week Monday, or this week Monday, really. And we have gotten some comments. We have done the same thing with various stakeholders, engagement with securities, engagement with the media, engagement with CSOs, and we're continuing to have feedback, which are very useful in finalizing the guidelines. And I believe as early as next week, Monday, thereabout, the final guideline will be out and go to print, having harvested all the comments that come out from the various consultations that I've had. So there's really nothing very hazy or difficult about it. We've gone through the process. I think the guidelines are quite straightforward and easy to understand, and by the time you receive them, so you will see that they're quite easy to follow. Whether or not the political space is exciting, of course, you know, INEC is not a political party. We don't really excite the political space. We provide the instrumentality based on the legal framework to ensure that we have free, fair, and credible elections, which is what we are promising to deliver.
Yes, you talk about you're not exciting the political space, but one thing you have talked about is monitoring how much these parties spend pre and probably post-election. And there has been a lot of talk about how you are going to monitor campaign spending. So at this point, is there any party you can say this is how much they have spent so far and they have not exceeded what they are supposed to spend, being INEC?
No, we cannot say that we have the final figure in terms of how much the parties have spent or are spending, because this has been a major challenge for INEC. Parties are not readily forthcoming in terms of their expenditure. In most cases, the books are not opened. In most cases, at the time we do this financing review, and a number of them do not even submit the data at all. It's a difficult thing, and it's a major challenge. We are having a lot of challenges in getting around and doing it. We've done a lot of capacity building, providing the instruments, teaching and providing capacity building, and taking them through the various ways in which these forms should be completed. We have sent independent people out there as auditors to help us do these books. We pay them to do these things, but parties are not easily forthcoming opening the books.
Let me put you on pause there, Dr. Lecky. We'll have to take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll go into part of the issue of who is an election monitor. Professor Odinkalu talked about the difference between a monitor and an observer. What is the difference? Who are these people? What are they expected to do? And then, of course, we'll include one or two questions from the audience. So please stay with us.